There's the slave cylinder. It's you can get to it. I've just done a long 1/4 inch drive to get to the bleed nipple. I need to put the dust cap back on that, but that's it now. And the exhaust is on. So that's all bolted up. We've got rubber washers compressed on the fittings, one on the rear beam and 2 on the rear box. So that's all ready to go. The paint apparently doesn't cure until the heat's built up in the exhaust. I'm not too keen on these clamps. They're just difficult to get apart, and I have made these extra long, these sleeves. Hopefully it won't have to come off, especially in a hurry. I mean, it'll come off if it has to. I just need a bit of knocking about. So the diff level needs checking, and the gearbox needs filling. So that'll be my next job. And then the tank guards, I've got an exhaust heat shield to go over where the tank is. Tank guards, and then I think we're just about done under the car. So I can drop it down and then carry on with the radiator and bits and pieces. That's the tank guard on. I've just got to join these 2 pieces together. That's the heat shield from the exhaust. Yeah, that's one of the regulations for rallying. You've got to have a tank guard. Right, oil for the gearbox and check the diff. Alright, this is what I'm using for the gearbox and the differential. I've got 4 litres, I hope that's enough. Well, 3.5 litres. And this mini pump is brilliant. You fill up with oil, hook that into the box and just pump it. Because otherwise, with them little spouts, it's a right job trying to get it in. So that's my way of getting the oil in the gearbox and the diff. That's the oil coming out. At least I'll have an idea of how much I need to get back in there. It looks pretty clean. I know it's not that old, but I'd rather change it without needing to. Hopefully it'll prolong the life of the box, save any problems. Can't hurt. I'm just doing a bit of wiring at the moment. This is so much easier without an inlet manifold and standard throttle body. This is just the trumpets and airbox taken off, but at least it allows me access to get to everything. This wiring loom I made quite a while ago. These wires are for oil pressure, starter motor, rev counter, oil temp, is it? Anyway, they're bits that go into the original loom. So I've cut them with enough leaving. What I need to do is make a plug, actually. That will make things easier for the future. It's always a bit last minute and I'll do that next time type thing. It wasn't meant to be left with crimps on it, but they've worked for a couple of years now. And the other wires I've got to connect are for the fuel pump relay. Plug the ECU in, and the main feed and the earths. So there's a couple of wires inside. I've got the fuel filters down there. I need to connect that up and secure it somewhere. Then put oil in it. I've started putting the water pipes on. I've got the electric water pump and the other radiator to go on. I'll keep the radiator as it was. I was going to put a different radiator on, an M3 rad, but I know the radiator works, so I'll go with that again. I've got to tighten up the column inside and out, and yeah, we're sort of moving on. The oil's been filled up. That pump took a lot longer than I thought it would. That was quite hard work under the car. The diff had plenty of oil in it, and once I've got this tidied up, I can start on the interior. That's them all crimped temporarily again until I get more time, and I'll put a plug on there or something. I have got plugs, but I'll have to dig them out and find them. So I've loom taped it. They're all butt connectors, and I've taped them all up to stop them wobbling about. Once I've finished getting all the cables through that hole, I put some old rubber pipe around it, and then silicone around it, just so that it don't chafe, and makes an airtight seal for the bulkhead, which is required. Right, get started on the inside now. That's the ECU and all the other wiring connected. So technically it should turn over and everything should talk to each other. Hopefully that's all done right. There was only a few wires there to reconnect. Yeah, now I can get on with the radiator and bits. Fuel pipes are on. Fuel filter, dry brake coupling for fuel sampling. That's a requirement for anything. There's all the cables running through into the cockpit. I've just put some aluminium plate over that with a hole cut out of it, and mastic siliconed it on, just bathroom silicone. That will seal any holes. Yeah, next job. I've just topped up the reservoirs, fit the HT leads, the trumpets fit to the throttle bodies with the air filter. We had a couple of issues fitting the rad, whereas that extinguishing nozzle was there, so obviously didn't fit, and that one was right onto the coil pack, so I've had to raise that one up, move that one over. Throttle cable, I've done no water in the rad yet because I've got to get some antifreeze. New water bottle, water washer bottle. I've only put a bit in it because this was a deluxe one, which was about 50p more expensive than the normal ones. So hopefully it's going to hold the water. I have had quite a few of these and always had problems, mainly when you try and take the pipe off, it snaps the pump plastic. I have the washer pipes going direct to the windscreen wipers, so I don't bother with the jets on the bonnet, especially seeing the bonnet opens forwards. I've tightened the exhaust manifold up, fitted all the remaining manifold bolts. I think that's it for the engine bay, apart from the antifreeze and water. I've got to prime the fuel pump, so I'll turn the ignition on a few times just to get the fuel pump going. That way, because I've had the pipes on and off, if there's any crap in there, it should push it back to the tank where the filter will get it, rather than trying to start it, and I don't want to block the injector filters up. So that's should start. I'll obviously put the antifreeze in first and then give it a go. Right, I put some antifreeze in the radiator, so these can sometimes be a little bit tricky to bleed, but what I'll do is I'll put the ignition on, and at least that way it'll start the pump without having to run the engine. I'm going to put the oil in. This is what the engine builder gave me to put in. He reckons it's quite good oil, so I presume what's that, 5 litres, most of that will go in. That's the battery connected. If I put the power on, this car's now. Whoa, no. Don't windscreen wipers carry all the dust on the windscreen. Should have thought about that. Yeah, that needs to have a good wash first before they start going. going on here a bit. Oh, that's it. Water pump, pumping water out the overflow. Yeah. Because when water level needs to be up to about here, and I've got it much higher than that. I might seal it all up. Fire up again. Not fire up, just get the electric going again. And see if that should contain it then. I just want to get the water circulating around the engine. And that way it can bleed it. Then I can release this bleed screw later. If I leave it loose, it's just going to pump water out of it. I suppose the idea of the expansion tank on the side is that that will collect the water. Let me hear the fuel pump go though. Let's try it again. That was a fuel pump. That's good. That's the water pump kicking in. So that's pumping water around the engine. It'll pulse, it'll go on for a bit, then it'll stop for a bit. That's it going really slow. Right, that's it stopped. The idea being, while the engine's running, it thinks the engine's running, so it'll let the engine build up some heat, and then it'll kick in again. Start pumping the water around. Otherwise the water will never heat up, it'll just stay too cold. So it's got a temperature gauge, and when it gets to the warm enough, it will go constantly, the water pump. It'll just be on unless it gets too cold, then there it goes again. You can hear bubbles coming out there, that's good. Bubbles on the electric. I think there's quite a bit that came out. Right. Now the controller for the water pump is there. So at the moment it's flashing EWP, electric water pump. That's just to let you know that it's on. There's obviously no temperature in it at the moment. It's got I can set the temperature. At the moment it's set to 85 degrees. So that's where it will keep the temperature of the water. What I usually do is keep it quite low. That's on 65. So it'll do its best to keep it at that temperature. So it'll be, before I start the stage, it'll be at 65. Obviously the heat will build up as I'm driving, and then that way it will try and keep it as low as possible. But there's a light a warning light that will come on. I'm not sure, oh there it is. It's very small, but you know, you see it when it comes on. So that will come on because it will get warmer than 65 degrees. So when it gets to about 75 degrees, it will put the warning light on. But what it's going to do now is, because it's not noticing any temperature increase, it thinks the engine's running, so it'll think there's a problem with the water temp sensor. So what it'll do eventually, after a while, it'll just go full speed, which will be good for bleeding it. But it will also put the fan on as well, because that controls the fan. It's coming through again. We'll take the cap off when it's done this cycle. Yeah, we've still got too much water in there. But, you know, it's still got to bleed the air out of it. We'll just keep it going until it cuts the fan in. So that, well, until it goes on constantly, and hopefully the fan will come in, and I know that's all wired up properly then. I know it all worked before. but a lot's been off and on, and I've had major surgery. The cable ties are to hold the rad on. I've got little rubber bungs. This rad isn't for this car. This is a 328i rad, which was in the compact. But it's done 2 years in this car, held in with cable ties. So, well, that's good, it's not coming over. I can leave that off then. That might help bleed it. Oil's in it. I've given it to the max, but it's going to drop. When I turn the engine over, it's going to fill the oil filter housing up. So about ready to see if it'll fire up, which will be interesting. This will be the first start in a year and a half, possibly. Oh, there we go. So there's a full pump going full bore, and the rad on, because it thinks there's an issue now with the temperature gauge. So because it's been running and it doesn't see any temperature, it thinks it's running and doesn't see any temperature. This is one of its fail safes. So it'll we'll give it some bubbles out. Yeah, so it'll go on to full. Now if I turn the ignition off, oh, there's the red lights come on because it thinks there's an issue. So it's just a warning light. But you can see the sign showing the fans going round. Electrical, it's not pulsing the EWP sign now. So when I turn it off, the ignition, because it can't see any temperature, it's just shut down. But normally, if you've got temperature in it, the fan will carry on going, and so will the pump, just to get the temperature down, and it will keep going for a good 5 minutes to circulate the water, which stops, because otherwise the water in the block is going to stay hot. This way it will suck the air through the fan and circulate it through the block, helping cool it down. All clever stuff. I need to get the fuel through a few times. Get a few bubbles coming out of there. I have got a new fuel pump. This one was out of the compact. This fuel pump, and I don't know how old it is. The water temp gauge doesn't actually work on the dash. I could put a sensor in it. As long as it's pumped it through a few times. I haven't got enough voltage to fire up. Like I say, that it's been sitting there with the battery for quite some time without being used. I mean, actually cleared the pipes out. Right, I think we're ready to give it a go at firing it up. I've just checked the engine for fuel leaks. No sign of fuel. I've mopped the floor to make sure it's all dry. So if it does spill any water, I'll notice. I'll put the bleeder back on. Oh God, there's so much being done. I'm just hoping it's going to start. And nothing's going to be untoward. Neutral. Interesting. I would have thought the fuel would have been up by now. I think I need to investigate because there doesn't seem any sign of life there. Right, my first test, I've taken one of the plug leads off, put it to a spare spark plug. The only way I can get that to see if it sparks is by recording it and then playing back the video. So I've got to try and balance the phone somewhere. So in theory, you'll know before I do if it's going to spark. Right, I'll have a look and see what happened there. That's good, in a way, that it's not sparking. I have got a coil pack. This was off a Peugeot 306. And I'm not sure if I had to earth the bolts. But I'm pretty sure it would have been earthed through the harness. I can't see anything dangling off that needs earthing. I think I'm just going to have a good look through, check everything's where it should be, make sure there's no earths that aren't connected, and then yeah, just have a look and see, check the wiring that I've done. Right, I've checked everything, can't see anything. There's two relays, one for the fuel pump, which we know is working, and the other one for the ECU. But I would have guessed the ECU sends a signal for the fuel pump. Let's try it again. Right, all lights still on. Right, time to investigate. I've just come across this, which is for the feed for the ECU, and that doesn't look good. I'll swap it over with a decent joint and then see if that's causing anything. I'm gutted, I really was keen to see if I could get it fired up. I was a bit nervous about trying it. I wanted to make sure I hadn't forgotten anything. This, I might have to plug the laptop. I've got an old laptop that will fit into the ECU and it'll tell me what's going on when I try cranking it. There's no spark. I was hoping to get it fired up for this episode. Unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to be able to, unless it's something real basic and I find something real quick. Fingers crossed, we'll have to hope that it's something simple.